Travis Cole didn't have time for laughs, especially not when his 5-year-old daughter was demanding more ketchup in the middle of a crowded park, and his last clean shirt had just fallen victim to her fries. "Daddy, you said we could get ice cream too," Naomi said, lip trembling, her brown curls sticking to her sweaty cheeks. "We will, sweetheart," Travis said, crouching beside her stroller, wiping ketchup off her chin with a napkin he prayed wasn't already used. "Just maybe next week, okay?" She didn't argue. Naomi was too used to the maybe next week line. It made Travis's chest ache every time she accepted it without protest. He stood up, rubbing the back of his neck, scanning the park for a distraction to keep her from noticing they were skipping dessert again. That's when he heard it. A soft laugh, warm and spontaneous like sunshine in sound. It caught him off guard. He turned toward the source and saw a woman sitting on the next bench over, watching him with amusement. She had a coffee in her hand, a book in her lap, and the kind of effortless beauty that didn't belong in a park full of screaming kids and pigeons. "I'm sorry," she said, standing up and walking toward them. "I wasn't laughing at you. Your daughter just reminds me of my niece, same face when she doesn't get what she wants." Travis chuckled, surprised by how fast the tension eased from his shoulders. "Yeah. Does your niece also have a sixth sense for finding the most expensive food stand? She once cried for 30 minutes because my brother wouldn't buy her a $7 cookie shaped like a unicorn." The woman smiled, crouching at Naomi's level. "Hi, I'm Rowan." Naomi glanced up at Travis for approval before whispering, "I'm Naomi." "That's a beautiful name," Rowan said, then looked up at Travis. "And you must be Dad of the Year." He laughed again, this time louder. "More like Dad of the Please Don't Cry in Public awards." Rowan grinned and stood. "I think you're doing just fine." Travis didn't know what made him do it, but he invited her to walk with them through the park. It wasn't like he had a schedule. He was off work until his next shift at the auto shop, and Naomi was always happier with company. Besides, Rowan didn't act like she was in a rush. She walked beside them easily, asking Naomi about her favorite cartoons and pretending to be shocked when she said she didn't like broccoli. They ended up near the duck pond, tossing crumbs from the crust of Naomi's sandwich. Travis hadn't felt this light in a long time. He couldn't remember the last time someone made him feel like he wasn't failing at everything. "You're good with her," Rowan said softly, her eyes on Naomi as she chased a duck and squealed when it flapped away. "I try," Travis said. "It's just me and her." Rowan looked at him, something shifting in her expression. "That must be a lot," he shrugged. "Her mom left when she was 2, said she wanted a different life. I guess I wasn't part of that." Rowan didn't say anything for a moment, then she asked, "And you? Do you get a life?" Travis smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "This is my life." They sat in silence for a bit, watching the afternoon sun bounce off the water. When Naomi came back and tugged on Travis's hand, asking if they could go to the playground, Rowan stood too. "I should let you both go," she said. "You could come," Travis said before he could stop himself. "I mean if you're not busy." Rowan hesitated, then nodded. "Sure, I've got time." They spent the next hour by the swings, and Travis couldn't believe how easy it was with her there. Rowan helped Naomi climb the jungle gym, clapped when she made it down the slide, and even wiped dirt off her knees without flinching. When Naomi finally collapsed in her stroller, exhausted and sticky with sweat, Travis glanced at Rowan and said, "You're really good with kids." "I used to volunteer at a children's hospital," she said, brushing a leaf from her dress. "I've always loved them." Travis nodded, biting his tongue before asking what she did now. She hadn't said, and he didn't want to push. She didn't look like someone who had time to kill on a random Tuesday afternoon, but she also didn't act like someone trying to impress him. "Thanks for today," he said as they reached the parking lot. Naomi had fun. "I did too." Rowan looked at him, her lips parting like she was about to say something, but then she smiled and said, "Me too." He opened his truck door, buckled Naomi in, and glanced back at her. "Do you come to this park often?" "Maybe," she said, stepping backward toward her car. "Guess you'll have to come back and find out." He watched her drive off in a sleek black car with tinted windows and no plates from around here, the kind of car rich people drove. But she hadn't looked rich. She'd looked real still. Something tugged at the back of his mind. The next few days, Travis couldn't stop thinking about her. He went back to the park the following Saturday, hoping by some miracle she'd show up again. She didn't, but on Sunday she was there. Travis spotted her sitting on the same bench, sunglasses pushed up in her hair, reading a book. Naomi screamed her name and ran toward her like they were old friends. Rowan stood and caught her in a hug like it was the most natural thing in the world. Then she looked up at Travis and smiled. "You came back," he laughed, heart thudding in his chest. "Told you I might." Rowan tilted her head. "I brought something for Naomi." She pulled out a small bag and handed it to his daughter, who squealed when she saw a stuffed duck inside. Travis blinked. "You didn't have to, I wanted to," Rowan said softly, her eyes meeting his. He didn't say anything. He just looked at her, really looked this time. There was something about her, something different, the way she carried herself. The way people stared as they walked by. The designer sunglasses she'd tossed on the bench like they meant nothing, and then it hit him. She wasn't just kind or beautiful, she was rich, but she hadn't said a word about it. As Naomi played, Travis turned to Rowan. "So, what do you really do?" She smiled, almost shyly. "Promise not to run," he raised an eyebrow. "That bad?" Rowan laughed. "I'm one of the co-founders of Delaney Innovations. We do software and medical tech. I'm technically a millionaire." Travis leaned back slowly, trying not to show how hard that hit him. She hadn't acted like someone who could afford to buy the entire park. She'd laughed with his daughter, sat on the ground, wiped dirt off her knees. "You didn't think to mention that earlier?" he asked. "I liked being just Rowan." He stared at her for a moment, then broke into a smile. "Well, Rowan, the millionaire, you're still the lady who laughed at us over spilled ketchup." Her eyes softened. "That's the part I hope you remember," he did, and somewhere deep in his chest something shifted. Travis didn't see Rowan for another 4 days. He didn't have her number. He hadn't asked. Now he wished he had, but something about the way she'd left things soft, unfinished, made him think she liked it that way. Like she was letting the connection unfold without forcing it. He tried not to think about her while he changed oil filters, scrubbed grease off his hands, and burned frozen pizza after Naomi fell asleep on the couch. But she kept slipping into his thoughts anyway. Not just her face, though that would have been enough, but the way she listened. The way she didn't flinch when things got messy. On Thursday afternoon, Travis picked Naomi up from preschool and took her for a walk along the river. Her teacher had said she'd been quiet that day. He figured the fresh air might shake it off. They were halfway down the path when Naomi pointed ahead. "That's her." Travis followed her finger and spotted Rowan leaning over the railing, tossing pieces of bread to a pair of swans. She was wearing jeans and a long camel-colored coat, her hair pulled back in a twist that looked casual but probably took effort. She turned just as Naomi shouted her name and waved. "Guess fate's got a soft spot for us," Travis said under his breath as they approached. Rowan crouched, arms open as Naomi barreled into her. "You're not sick of me yet?" she asked, glancing up at Travis with a raised brow. "I figured I'd test the limits," he replied, stopping a few feet away. "We were just walking. This wasn't planned." "I believe you," she said, standing. "But it's a good coincidence. You always feed the swans?" he asked. She nodded. "They've gotten used to me, probably think I own a bakery." Naomi leaned over the railing and dropped a crust into the water. "They look like floating pillows." Rowan laughed quietly. "That's exactly what they are." Travis watched them, his hands in his jacket pockets. The wind tugged at his sleeves, colder than usual. "You ever get tired of all this?" he asked. "The quiet, I mean." Rowan turned her head slightly. "Sometimes." "Then I remind myself it's earned." He studied her profile. "You don't talk like someone who coasted into money." "I didn't. My family was comfortable, but not like this. My brother and I built the company from scratch. We coded in my parents' basement for 2 years before anyone cared." Travis let out a low whistle. "So you're not just rich, you're smart." "Don't sound so surprised. I'm not, I just don't know many people who can say they built something out of nothing." Rowan's gaze flicked to Naomi, then back to him. "You can." He looked away, uncomfortable with the compliment. "I'm just doing what I have to. That's what building something looks like sometimes." They stood in silence for a moment, the water lapping against the rocks below. Naomi balanced on one foot, pretending to be a flamingo. Rowan cleared her throat. I'm going to a fundraiser tomorrow night. Children's Oncology. It's a formal event but very low-key compared to the usual circuit. You don't have to wear a tux. He blinked. You want me to come? I have a +1. I usually don't use it. Rowan, I don't belong at things like that. She tilted her head. Why not? Because I don't own anything that doesn't have a grease stain. Then I'll fix that, she said simply, like it was no big deal. I can't let you, I'm inviting you. If you say yes, that's the end of it. He hesitated. Naomi was tugging at his arm now, asking if they could get hot chocolate. Rowan waited, patient but unreadable. What about her? He asked, nodding at his daughter. I have someone who can look after her. A friend I trust. She used to teach kindergarten. Travis didn't answer right away. He watched Naomi hop along the path, pretending the cracks were lava. Then he turned back to Rowan. All right, he said. I'll come, but I swear if there's caviar, I'm walking out. Rowan smiled. Deal. The next evening, a black car pulled up to his building just after 6. Travis had never worn a suit tailored to him before. The jacket hugged his shoulders without choking him, and the pants didn't bunch at the ankles. There was even a watch on his wrist, heavy, sleek, probably worth more than his truck. Rowan hadn't asked for his sizes. She just sent everything, and somehow it all fit. He stepped outside, heart pounding harder than it had the day Naomi was born. The driver opened the door and nodded toward the back. Rowan was inside, hair swept up in a low twist, her dress a deep navy that shimmered beneath the city lights. It wasn't flashy, it was elegant, understated, and it made breathing difficult. You clean up terrifyingly well, she said, eyes scanning him. He tugged at his collar. I feel like I'm impersonating someone who pays their mortgage on time. She laughed and leaned closer. Let's just pretend you're a silent investor and I'm your charming spokesperson. The fundraiser was held in a private rooftop conservatory. Glass walls shimmered with candlelight, and a string quartet played in the background. It was quieter than Travis expected. No showy speeches, no camera crews. Just small groups of people sipping champagne and murmuring about research grants. He stayed close to Rowan. She introduced him as a friend, and no one seemed to question it. If anyone noticed his unease, they didn't show it. At one point, a man with silver hair and a sharp blue suit approached. Rowan, you look luminous. Thanks, Miles. This is Travis, she said, placing a hand lightly on his arm. Miles nodded, then turned to Travis. How do you two know each other? Travis hesitated, unsure what answer would make him seem less out of place. We met at the park, Rowan said smoothly. His daughter charmed me, Miles raised a brow. Ah, the unexpected kind of meeting. The best kind, she said. Later, as they stepped out onto the balcony overlooking the city, Travis exhaled slowly. You sure you want someone like me in your world? Rowan didn't look away from the skyline. I think you're the only person I've met lately who doesn't want anything from me. I don't know what I could take, even if I tried. That's exactly why I invited you. The lights of the city flickered below them, stretching endlessly into the dark. Travis watched her face, the way her eyes softened when she thought no one was looking. I don't know what this is, he admitted. Rowan turned to him. It doesn't have to be anything yet, but I'd like to find out. He didn't answer. Instead, he reached for her hand, lacing his fingers through hers. For the first time all night, he felt like he wasn't faking anything. Naomi's laughter echoed through the kitchen as she sat cross-legged on the floor, carefully frosting the sides of a lopsided cupcake. It's a duck, she announced proudly, holding up the confection. Travis crouched beside her, wiping icing off her cheek with the corner of a paper towel. That duck's got some wild feathers. Rowan leaned against the counter, sleeves rolled up to her elbows, flour dusted across her wrist. She's got an eye for abstract design. That's the next art movement, right? Animal-inspired desserts. Travis grinned, but his eyes lingered on Rowan as she turned to rinse a bowl in the sink. The late afternoon light spilled through the window behind her, catching in her hair. It had been almost 2 weeks since the fundraiser, and she'd shown up nearly every day since, sometimes with takeout, sometimes with books for Naomi, once with a tiny potted plant labeled duckweed. She never stayed too long unless invited, never took up too much space. But somehow she'd become part of the rhythm of their lives. He stood, brushing flour off his jeans. You didn't have to come help us with this baking disaster. I didn't come to help, she said, drying her hands. I came to eat. Then you're brave, he said, eyeing Naomi's frosting heavy duck. I think that one's got more sugar than cake. Rowan laughed, but her gaze flicked toward the window. I needed the distraction anyway. Travis tilted his head. Something wrong? She hesitated, then shrugged. My brother called. He's worried I'm not showing face at enough of the right events lately. Our board's getting anxious. You're not worried. I'm used to people talking. I just didn't expect them to care so much about where I spend my Friday nights. You mean here? He asked, his voice quieter now. Rowan turned, her expression unreadable. I mean anywhere that isn't lined in marble and champagne. He crossed his arms. You could go back to that anytime. I could, she said evenly, but I don't want to. Naomi climbed onto a stool, cupcake in hand, and looked between them. Can we make another one? A swan this time? Absolutely, Rowan said, moving toward her. But only if your dad makes the batter this time. Mine came out more like soup. You were aiming for a soufflé, Travis teased. Rowan raised an eyebrow. I was aiming for survival. While Naomi mixed, Travis leaned in closer. Your brother's worried you're wasting time, more or less, she said, keeping her voice low. He's not wrong. I've stepped back from work more than I ever have. But it's not like I'm hiding. You think he'd disapprove of this? He gestured vaguely, not naming it. She didn't look at him, just reached for the cocoa powder. He wouldn't understand it. Because I'm not one of your people. Rowan finally turned. Because he's never had to ask himself whether love and logic can exist in the same decision. The room felt smaller around them for a second. Travis swallowed. Is that what this is? I don't know yet, she said. But I know I think about this kitchen more than I think about boardrooms lately. Naomi interrupted them with a loud ta-da as she held up the next cupcake, which looked vaguely aquatic. Beautiful, Rowan said, leaning over to admire it. That one's definitely a swan. Can we have a picnic tomorrow? Naomi asked. Rowan glanced at Travis, who raised a brow. You're free, I can be, she said. The next day they sat under a tree in a quiet park outside the city. Travis had packed sandwiches and apple slices, and Rowan had brought a tart from a bakery that probably required reservations. Naomi ran barefoot across the grass, chasing butterflies and falling into giggles every few steps. Rowan lay on her side, propped on an elbow, watching her. She's fearless. She doesn't know yet what to be afraid of. That's a gift, she said. You've given her that. Travis stared at the sky for a moment. You ever want kids? I used to think no, she said. Now, I don't know. I think I just didn't want them in the life I had, he looked at her. And now, I'm still figuring that out, he nodded slowly. You're not used to not having all the answers, are you? Rowan smiled faintly. No. But I think I'm learning. They were quiet for a while, the sounds of the park soft around them. Then Rowan said, I leave for New York next week. Travis sat up. For how long? 3 days. There's a summit. My attendance isn't optional. Right, he said, picking at a blade of grass. I wasn't going to say anything yet, but I didn't want to disappear and make it seem like I'd changed my mind about this. I appreciate that. I'll be back Friday morning, she added. I'd like to see you that night. Travis nodded. You will. The next few days passed slower than he expected. He'd gotten used to her stopping by, to the way Naomi ran to the door when she heard that soft knock. Now the apartment felt quieter, like something important had been removed and not replaced. On Thursday evening, after putting Naomi to bed, Travis stood on the balcony with a beer in hand. The city lights blinked far off in the distance. He wasn't used to waiting. His whole life had been about doing, fixing, surviving, but now he waited for a woman who had stepped into his world like a gust of wind and left him breathless. Friday morning came, and so did a phone call. Rowan's voice sounded thinner than usual. My flight's delayed. Weather on the East Coast is a nightmare. I'm stuck in Boston. They're trying to reroute me. All right, Travis said, trying to keep the disappointment out of his voice. Just let me know when you land. I will. I promise. It wasn't until nightfall that she called again. I'm not making it tonight, she said, frustration laced through her words. They pushed me to tomorrow morning. I hate this. It's okay, he said, even though it wasn't. No, it's not. I miss you. Travis closed his eyes. Then get here safe. That's all I care about. He hung up and stared at the ceiling for a long time. At dawn, Rowan arrived. She didn't call first. She knocked, and when he opened the door, she was standing there in a long coat, hair messy from sleep, her bag slung over one shoulder. I didn't want to wait another hour. Travis didn't say anything. He just pulled her inside and kissed her like he'd been holding his breath since she left. Naomi yawned from the hallway. Is it morning already? Rowan pulled back, laughing softly. Looks like I'm just in time for breakfast. Travis looked at her, really looked, and for the first time he didn't feel like this was something fragile. He felt like it was real, like it could last, and maybe, just maybe, he was allowed to want that. The wind pushed against Travis's shoulders as he stepped out of the auto shop that evening, the last of the spring chill clinging to the breeze. His hands were raw from a long day of work, 2 brake jobs, a transmission replacement, and a radiator that refused to cooperate. But his mind wasn't on engines or invoices. It hadn't been for a while now. He crossed the street, holding a paper bag with Naomi's favorite dinner grilled chicken skewers and jasmine rice from the little Thai place around the corner. As he walked, his phone buzzed. He pulled it out and saw a name that still felt strangely surreal lighting up the screen. Hey, he answered, stepping under a street lamp. I'm already at your place, Rowan said, her voice warm but breathless. I know I said I'd wait, but Naomi practically dragged me in. She set up a tea party and insists you're the guest of honor. Travis smiled, already walking faster. She always throws the best parties. I'll be there in 5. When he opened the apartment door, the smell of lavender-scented candles hit him first, followed by the sight of his daughter wearing a tiara made of pipe cleaners and Rowan kneeling beside her, pouring imaginary tea into plastic cups. There were cookies on a plate, real ones, and a soft blanket draped across the floor like a royal rug. Daddy, you're late, Naomi said, lifting her chin with exaggerated authority. Rowan looked up at him from the floor, her eyes dancing with mischief. You've been summoned, apparently. He kicked off his boots, set the food on the counter, and joined them on the floor. Forgive me, Your Majesty. I bring an offering of skewers. Naomi approved of the tribute by immediately abandoning the tea to tear into the food, and Rowan leaned closer to Travis. She made me promise we'd have a tea party tonight, said it was important. Important how? He whispered. She said it's because you've been smiling more lately, and she wanted to keep it going. Travis's chest tightened. He reached for a cookie and took a bite, needing something to ground him. Later, after Naomi had fallen asleep draped across a pillow fort of blankets and stuffed animals, Travis stood in the kitchen rinsing dishes. Rowan leaned against the fridge, sipping a glass of water. I've been thinking, she said, watching him. That sounds dangerous. I'm serious. He dried his hands and turned to face her. Okay, shoot. I've been offered a position in Milan. It's an expansion project. Our European branch is pushing hard for a full-time executive on site. They want me to start in 6 weeks. Travis's stomach dropped, but he didn't let his expression shift. He leaned back against the sink, arms folded. And you're telling me because? Because I turned it down, he blinked. Why? I told them I couldn't commit to anything that would take me away from what I'm building here. He searched her face. You mean your company? I mean this, she said, stepping closer. You, Naomi, what we've started. I didn't ask you to give anything up. I know, she said gently. That's why it matters. He looked down at the counter, then back at her. What happens next, then? You staying here just visiting? What are we doing? Rowan hesitated, then reached into her coat pocket and pulled out a folded envelope. She handed it to him without a word. Travis opened it and found a letter of incorporation with his name listed beside hers. His breath caught. This is a proposal, she said. Not that kind, not yet. But I've been thinking about how we combine our worlds. You have skills, Travis. You understand people, the kind that corporate developers never do. I want to invest in a community-based repair and innovation center. Real tools, real training, real second chances. You'd run it. I'd fund it. He stared at the paper in his hands. You want to go into business with me? I want to build something that matters, and I want to build it with someone who knows how to fight for what's real. I've never run anything like that. You've been running your life like it's a company held together with duct tape and grit. You're more qualified than you think. He set the envelope down slowly. This isn't charity. No, it's a partnership. And if you're not ready, I'll wait. But if you are, we could make something permanent. Travis crossed the room and took her hands in his. I don't care about the business. I care about what you're really saying. I'm saying I'm in this. I'm not going anywhere. He kissed her. Not rushed, not desperate. Just sure. The next morning they drove to a small lot off the main strip, an old mechanic's garage that had been boarded up for years. Rowan stepped out of the car first, shielding her eyes against the sun. I thought we could start here, she said. Travis followed, Naomi skipping ahead of them with her backpack bouncing. He walked the perimeter, ducked under the awning, and stepped inside. The space was dusty, the tools long gone, but the bones were good, solid, waiting. I could see it, he said after a while. Rowan smiled. Then let's make it real. 2 months later, the grand opening of Cole Innovations was held in that same garage. The walls had been repainted, the floors polished, and the smell of fresh wood and new beginnings filled the air. A banner stretched across the entrance, and a crowd gathered to see what the buzz was about. Rowan stood beside Travis, her hand in his, her other resting lightly on Naomi's shoulder. She wore no diamonds, no designer labels, just a fitted blazer and jeans, her hair loose in the wind. Travis stepped forward and gave a short, heartfelt speech. He didn't talk about money. He talked about second chances, about how sometimes the best things come from unexpected detours. About how he once laughed with a stranger in a park and didn't realize his life was changing. Rowan turned to him as the crowd clapped. You know what I love most about you, he leaned in. What? You never once asked me to prove anything. He looked at her like the world made sense again. You did anyway. As the sun dipped behind the rooftops and Naomi passed out cookies shaped like tiny toolboxes, Travis pulled Rowan close and kissed her beneath the banner that bore both their names. It wasn't just a love story. It was a life, finally whole. Travis tightened the last bolt on the panel beneath the workbench, dusted off his hands, and stood back to admire the custom-built station. The space was finally complete, not just functional, beautiful. Polished wood trim, gleaming tools, and a wall of framed photos from the ribbon-cutting ceremony lined the far side. Each picture captured something new. A smiling student learning to weld, a mother fixing her son's bike, Naomi holding a wrench twice the size of her hand. He turned as footsteps echoed behind him. Rowan stepped through the open bay door, wearing flats and a soft gray cardigan over a crisp white blouse. Her hair was clipped back, but strands had fallen loose around her face. She held a clipboard in one hand and a bottle of water in the other. You're an hour early, he said. I know, I wanted to see the final touches before the press comes in. Also, she walked further inside, I needed a break from the chaos. There's a man in a blazer asking if we can enhance the lighting for visual storytelling. What does that even mean? I don't know. I told him you were in charge of all visual storytelling involving power tools. He chuckled and wiped his hands on a rag. He's not going to like my idea of good lighting then. She stepped closer, setting the clipboard on the work table. This place is more than I imagined. It feels lived in already. That's because we built it around real people, not concepts. He looked over at her. How's Naomi doing with the after-school sessions? She told me yesterday she wants to fix things forever. She's got the hands for it. And the bossiness, Rowan added. She was telling a teenager how to solder last night. Travis leaned against the counter. I like that she feels like this is hers too. Rowan nodded, then hesitated. There's something I want to ask you. Her voice softened, but only if you're ready. He crossed his arms, curious. Go ahead. I've been thinking about the house. She met his gaze. The one I bought before all of this started. I don't really like living there alone. It's too quiet, too clean, doesn't feel like it belongs to anyone. He waited, sensing where this was headed but not wanting to rush her. I want it to be loud, messy. Full of burnt toast and cartoons and your tools in the hallway. I want it to feel like home, our home. He looked at her carefully. Are you asking what I think you're asking? I'm asking if you and Naomi would move in with me. Travis didn't hesitate. Yes. We will. Her eyes flickered, relief and emotion rippling through them. You're sure? Rowan, I've never been more sure of anything. She reached for his hand, their fingers locking together in a quiet promise. The press event that afternoon brought more flashbulbs and questions than Travis liked, but Rowan handled it with practiced calm. She spoke about innovation, about reinvestment, about the power of second chances. And when someone asked what inspired her to create a center like this so personal, so rooted in a working-class neighborhood, she didn't blink. I met a man who reminded me that the most brilliant ideas come from places no one's looking at. I was just smart enough to listen. The article landed the next morning with a photo of Rowan and Travis standing on the front steps of the center. Naomi was perched on his shoulders, her arms stretched out like wings. The headline read, "Billionaire's Heart, Mechanic's Hands, the New Blueprint for Change." A week later, they moved into the house. It wasn't glamorous by Rowan's standards, mid-century, modest backyard, 2 stories with creaky floorboards and a garage that Travis was already planning to convert, but it felt alive. Naomi picked the bedroom with the yellow curtains and turned the closet into a clubhouse. Travis installed a porch swing out front. Rowan stocked the kitchen with everything from organic kale to boxed macaroni because balance. They had dinner together every night. Sometimes on the floor, sometimes at the table, sometimes in the backyard with paper plates and fairy lights strung between the trees. On weekends, they hosted workshops at the center. Teenagers came in with bikes and left with confidence. Parents brought broken appliances and stayed to talk. One evening, after Naomi had gone to bed, Travis and Rowan sat on the porch swing. The night was unusually warm, and the scent of honeysuckle drifted from the nearby fence. He shifted, reaching into his pocket. "I've been carrying this around for weeks," he said quietly. Rowan turned, brows raised. "It's not flashy. I didn't want flashy." He opened his hand to reveal a simple ring, a thin gold band with a single sapphire, deep, stormy, and unlike any diamond. "I picked it because it reminded me of the first time I saw you. That day in the park, with your book and your laugh like it didn't belong in this world." Her breath caught. "I don't need anything else, Rowan. Not titles or press or plans. I just need you. And Naomi deserves the kind of love that doesn't walk away when things get hard." "So do you," she swallowed, blinking fast. "I want to marry you. I want to wake up beside you every morning and fall asleep knowing we built something no one else ever could." Rowan didn't speak. She just leaned forward and kissed him, slow and steady, her hands resting against his chest. "Yes," she whispered against his mouth. "Yes to all of it." They married in the garden behind the house 3 months later. Naomi wore a crown of daisies and carried the rings in a wooden toolbox she decorated with glitter. The vows were short, but the promises were infinite. Afterward, they danced barefoot on the grass, and neighbors filled the yard with laughter and stories. In the years that followed, Cole Innovations expanded to 4 cities. Each center bore the same core philosophy: dignity, access, and purpose. Travis taught classes, mentored youth, and became a voice of quiet leadership in a world that too often overlooked men like him. Rowan continued to run her company, but no longer lived behind boardroom walls. She found her balance in late-night ice cream runs and early morning blueprints spread across the dining table. Naomi grew. She built her first go-kart at age 9, gave a TEDx talk at 12, and refused to let anyone label her as just one thing: artist, engineer, dreamer, daughter. One evening, years later, Travis stood in the doorway of the garage as Rowan packed up a crate of donated tools. She looked up, strands of silver now threading through her hair. "You still love me?" she asked, teasing. He crossed the floor and wrapped his arms around her waist. "More. Every day, even when I forget where I put the drill, especially then." They kissed like it was the first time and the 100th all at once. And in that quiet, oil-scented space, surrounded by the life they'd built from scratch, there was no doubt, not in him, not in her, not in the walls that had held their laughter and their love. They had made something permanent together. Always.